to Nashville, Tennessee.
The speeches are over. The races have been run. And soon America begins counting the 78th vote.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Max Robinson in Chicago, Peter Jennings in London, special reports from Barbara Walters, and from our election night headquarters in New York, Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. The 78th vote is still underway across most of the nation. Only in parts of Alabama and Kentucky have the polls begun to close. The weather was mixed, everything from mild temperatures and sunny skies to freezing cold and rain. But voter turnout in any particular area was determined more by candidates and issues than the weather. Voting was sparse in Georgia and Alabama, not unexpected in this off-year election. Despite a close Senate race, Illinois may have the lowest voter turnout in a quarter of a century. But close governor and Senate races in Massachusetts have brought an estimated 80% of the registered voters to the polls. Lines at voting places were long, too, in Michigan, as well as in Minnesota and Colorado, where it looks like a record turnout. There are 35 Senate races today. The Republicans now hold the contested seat in the 17 light yellow states. The 18 dark blue states show where a Democratic seat is up for election. We'll be watching all those races through the night and keeping a particular eye on some where the seats of well-known incumbents are at stake. Illinois' Republican Senator Charles Percy is in a very close race, as is Edward Brooke, the Republican senator from Massachusetts, who's had some ethics problems. Ethics will also be a factor in a number of House races, even though several representatives now under indictment are expected to win re-election as voters choose all 435 members of the House of Representatives. We have two reports tonight from our congressional correspondents. First, here is Don Farmer.
The Democrats will control the new Senate no matter what happens today, but 8 or 9 of the 35 contests are toss-ups right now, and who wins will affect what the new Senate does. If Senator Brooke should lose, supporters of liberal abortion laws would lose their champion here. Brooke also speaks for the poor on urban affairs and housing. If Percy should lose, Republican moderates would miss his influence on the Foreign Relations Committee. Some old-timers are retiring. Eastland of Mississippi is handing over the Judiciary Committee to the much more liberal Edward Kennedy. Kennedy will be tougher on big business. Sparkman of Alabama gives up the Foreign Relations Committee to liberal Frank Church, and he might lead the fight for an arms treaty with the Russians. So some new leaders and new faces will be among the senators who convene here next year. Now, a look at the House from Britt Hume.
Thanks, Don. Republicans here today are talking about a net gain of only 10 or 15 seats, not nearly enough to tip the balance of power away from the Democrats. So much of the interest tonight will center on races involving congressmen in serious ethical trouble. One member has been convicted already in a payroll swindle. 2 more are facing indictment, and 3 others have been reprimanded formally by the House for their role in the Korean influence scandal. Yet all but 3 of those candidates in ethical trouble are favored to win. And the Democrats will be carefully watching the returns from the state of Washington tonight, where one of their stars, Tom Foley, chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, chairman of the Democratic Caucus, and a man sometimes mentioned as a possible future speaker, is in the race of his life. Britt Hume, ABC News, on Capitol Hill.
It's not only the House and Senate that are battlegrounds tonight. State legislatures and governor's mansions across the nation are also being fought over. We'll look at some of those key races in a moment.
World News Tonight, brought to you by Sanka Brand Decaffeinated Coffee, the coffee that lets you be your best.
I'm not going, and that's final.
You're overreacting, Phil. What's the matter?
Well, his doctor told him caffeine bothers him.
You should drink Sanka Brand decaffeinated coffee.
But I only like real coffee.
Phil, Sanka Brand is 100% real coffee. Try it.
This is real coffee.
My goodness, look at the lovebirds.
That's what happens when you fall in love with Sanka Brand.
Sanka Brand, the coffee that lets you be your best.
I'm accustomed to riding around in Cadillacs. So why am I in this AMC Pacer wagon instead of a Cadillac? Well, this Pacer is not only quite luxurious and handles so easily, but it also has an astounding amount of room. Did you know that the AMC Pacer is just about as wide as a Cadillac? So it feels like a big car, even though it isn't. And I feel like I'm in a big car, even though I'm not.
AMC Pacer feels like a big car, but it isn't.
It's in the state governments that the Republicans are trying to rebuild for the future to recapture some of those governorships in state legislatures they've lost over the past decade. 36 governors will be elected today. In 9 of those states, the light yellow ones, the Republicans now control the state house. The 26 dark blue states show where Democrats are now incumbent. Maine's governor is an independent. Republicans hope to pick up at least 4 additional state houses in this election, as well as add to the number of state legislatures they control. We have 2 reports. First, John Martin.
This is Republican state election headquarters in Newcastle, Delaware. Delaware, Illinois, Indiana, and Alaska are the 4 states where Republicans think they have the best chance tonight of controlling the state legislature. Altogether, the Republican National Party is spending $2 million in cash and campaign services in 25 states, supporting state legislative candidates like Aldo DeAngelis in Illinois, a manufacturer who got about $3,000 to help make his first campaign for office. If the Republicans win 5 more state Senate seats and 6 more lower house seats in Illinois, they will take control of both houses. If they keep control and re-elect a Republican governor, they will draw the new legislative boundaries after the 1980 census. Illinois is losing population and expects to lose a seat in Congress. So, unless Aldo DeAngelis and the Republicans win control soon, the Democrats will have the power to eliminate a seat held by a Republican. The party will lose still more power. Since 1969, it has lost control of 15 state legislatures, dropping 800 seats, and now controls both houses in only 5 states. What this means is that the Republicans are trying to start closing the gap tonight, supporting state candidates here on the state level, grooming them for the future, and hoping to reverse a national trend that is running against the grand old party. John Martin, ABC News, Newcastle, Delaware.
This is Tom Jarrell. Here in California, over 70% of the voters are expected to mark their ballots, an extraordinarily high turnout, in part because of 2 controversial referendums. Proposition 5 restricts smokers. It could ban smoking in enclosed public buildings like schools, libraries, and hospitals, and in places of employment, except in designated smoking areas. Proposition 6 could permit schools to fire teachers, not only homosexual teachers, but friends and associates or even advocates of homosexuality. In North Dakota, the spiraling cost of medical care has sparked a proposition which could set fixed ceilings on doctors, dentists, and hospital fees. Along Florida's Gold Coast, Proposition 9 would legalize gambling casinos, which the hotel owners say they need to stay prosperous, and opponents claim would attract criminals. In both Florida and Nevada, there are votes on equality for women. Legislatures in neither of those states have approved the Equal Rights Amendment, but may move if the people say so. California's tax-cutting Proposition 13 has offspring on the ballots now in 16 states, stretching from Florida to Oregon, where the voters will have a chance to say they want to cut their taxes and have more financially responsive government. The voters of California did that last June. Tom Jarrell, ABC News in Los Angeles.
We'll all be back at 7 o'clock Eastern Time with exclusive ABC News election analysis and projections. And throughout the night, as the votes are counted, we'll have interviews with winners and losers in this, the 78th vote.
FTD Sunshiner Bouquet brightens any day, and your FTD florist delivers sunshine everywhere.
Oh, the Sunshiner Bouquet! And it's not even my anniversary!
Your FTD florist can deliver the FTD Sunshiner Bouquet almost anywhere. Those FTD florists really get around for you.
Back when golf was mostly for the well-to-do, a drive to the links was probably on a prestige tire of the time, Generals. Today, General Tire quality comes in a range of tire designs and prices for everyone. There's our sporty Sprint Steel radial, our low wide-belted grabber, and our top-of-the-line dual steel 2 radial. Quality, choice, price. General has a tire for you.
Sooner or later, you'll own Generals. It all began with Suave Bola wine. Suave Bola. There are almost as many people in love with Suave Bola as there are people in love.
The problem? After New York State okayed checking for savings banks, the Buffalo Savings Bank could have been flooded with new customers. Let's get this show on the road. But the bank and the Bell system came up with this solution. Turn retail stores into banking service centers. Here, a Bell system terminal links up with the bank's computers to process transactions instantly.
24, 25, and a ham and cheese on rye.
Another case that shows the system is the solution.
Well, overseas today, the American election is of less concern in most countries than the still unstable political situation in Iran. The Shah's new military government today arrested a number of senior officials from previous civilian governments, including the one-time commander of Iran's much-feared secret police. They've all been charged with corruption or misusing power. Some anti-Shah demonstrations are reported from various parts of the country, but nothing on the scale of last weekend. In Tehran tonight, here's Bill Blakemore.
On the spot where the weekend riots had started on Tehran University campus, this morning, the cleanup. Near the pedestal from which the rioters had pulled down a statue of the Shah, this morning, those broken remains had disappeared. Martial law has been swiftly and effectively imposed in Tehran. The new military government promised that gasoline would be provided for everybody after a pump attendant strike had left most city cars stranded. The army carried out the promise. Last night, the Shah broadcast to the nation in conciliatory tones, saying the past mistakes of his rule would not be repeated, but his drive against oppression and corruption in high places, which he acknowledged might still abound here, would go on. That when law and order return, free nationwide elections would be held. Until then, military government controls the streets in Tehran, as throughout the country. Large American-made tanks of the Iranian army conspicuously placed at major intersections. Tehran's Central Bazaar is still closed, the economic community still slightly tentative about the situation and waiting a little longer for proof. Though some heavy construction in the city did continue. One destroyed building still smoking today from Sunday's rampage, the headquarters of a European car company. Down with Western imperialism was a slogan frequently shouted by the mobs of young men and teenagers as they raced through the streets on the weekend. Along with 4 international hotels, cinemas owned by rich Iranian families, and some other foreign business offices, it was the Iranian banks which suffered most from the angry attentions of the mobs. It is not clear why. Some here speculate they were associated by the rioters with government finances. Another casualty of the new crackdown, the Shah promises a temporary one, is the press freedom which had been part of his new liberalization drive. Most newspapers are not appearing at newsstands. Only government-controlled sources of news will be allowed here until further notice. Bill Blakemore, ABC News, Tehran.
Politics in Israel and her occupied territories today. The Israelis have been voting in municipal elections, and the quality of life has been seen as more important than the tentative peace treaty with Egypt. Well, not so on the occupied West Bank. With restrictions on public political expression recently lifted, an estimated 5,000 Palestinians rallied to show their rejection of the Camp David agreements. Union leaders, students, mayors, and other public officials spoke as one. The Palestine Liberation Organization was the only organization to represent them. They were told to stay on their land and not leave it to the Israeli occupier. The sheikh of the mosque where Sadat prayed during his history-making visit said there can be no agreement on a future for the Palestinians unless agreed to by the PLO. Before Camp David, this sort of political gathering was forbidden. Politics of a different sort in the Soviet Union today, of style and of size. The 61st anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, Charles Bierbauer was in Red Square.
On this 61st anniversary of the revolution, Soviet Party Chief and President Leonid Brezhnev is 71 and nearing a close to a Kremlin career. Brezhnev's health is always in question. His successor is undoubtedly among the dozen fellow members of the ruling Politburo who bundled against the sub-freezing cold to review the parade from atop Lenin's mausoleum. Yet even a red crystal ball could not name that successor. November 7th is special to the military. It is now the only day when Soviet military hardware is paraded through Red Square. But the brisk passing of tanks and rockets showed no new weapons this year. Defense Minister Dmitry Ustinov, delivering the anniversary address, recounted a familiar theme of a Soviet quest for détente, frustrated by what the Soviet Marshal called aggressive imperialist circles striving to bring back the Cold War. Clearly, the military comes first on the anniversary of the Soviet Revolution, but it is not exclusively their day. That other Soviet army, its masses, are as likely to carry paper flowers as rifles, to wear parkas and fur hats as uniforms. And the masses would like things to stay that way. Charles Bierbauer, ABC News, Moscow.
The coldest message in Red Square today was for the Chinese. The Soviet defense minister said they were a serious threat to peace, and as is the custom on such occasions, the Chinese walked out. Well, elsewhere around the world these days, the Chinese are showing more interest in getting into business. Last week in Peking, it was the American Energy Secretary. This week, the Secretary of Agriculture. Bob Berglund said today the Chinese had offered up a concrete list of proposals for bilateral cooperation. As the Canton Trade Fair showed this year, the Chinese interest in international business is not limited by any means to governments, nor is it completely new. Jim Laurie has the story tonight of two Americans who are almost old hands.
Arlene and Bryce Bowman have been trading with China for 3 years now, and although those banquet toasts with Chinese Mao-Tai taste bitter going down, the fruits of the trade, the Bowmans say, are definitely sweet. Arlene Bowman's passion for China goes back a long way.
Since I was a little girl, I can remember, like when I was 5 years old on the beach in Coney Island, my mother always used to tell me, if I continued to dig, that eventually I would get to China.
25 years later, her digging got the Bowmans to Canton to buy silk shirts. This year, things are easier for buyers. Anxious for more trade, the Chinese are going all out to be helpful. The Bowmans say what took hours to work out a year ago now is resolved in 10 minutes. Not all buyers are happy, though. A newcomer, Chris Highland, who's buying lacquerware, complains that because of restrictive U.S. tariffs, America is losing out. He says, free of restraints, countries like Japan are buying more and then selling more to China. Over at the Dongfang Hotel, businessmen at the U.S.-China Trade Council say normalization with Peking would give the U.S. equal footing in China trade. But even without normalization, there's excitement here about the prospect of major joint ventures with Chinese industry. As for the Bowmans, they'd like to expand their small business, and they're pleased that the Chinese are just as good to them as to big corporations.
The primary success of our company has been based on the fact that we are importing products from the People's Republic of China. I mean, the Chinese took a chance with us, and we took a chance with them, and I really feel it's paid off.
Jim Laurie, ABC News in Canton, China.
Two brief notes on well-known personalities overseas today. India's former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi may be on her way back to Parliament. She is solidly ahead tonight in the voting results of an election in South India. She was voted out of office just under 2 years ago. Finally, from overseas, Elton John has been hospitalized here in London. The British pop star, who's 31, suffered chest pains at his home this morning. Doctors tonight ruled out heart trouble, but said he's overworked and exhausted.
We now have returns from parts of the state of Kentucky where the polls have already closed and the votes are being counted. With 5% of the precincts in, you can see the Democratic candidate, incumbent Senator Walter Huddleston, is leading his Republican challenger, Louis Gunther, by 64% to 34%. Based on results from ABC's selected key precincts, we now project that Senator Huddleston will be re-elected by a wide margin. However, polls in some parts of Kentucky will not close until 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so that race cannot be officially declared over.
I make dentures, and I wear them, but I don't clean mine the way you do. I know tablets can't remove most plaque. What does? New Complete. A new cleanser that gives plaque the brush off. Tablets work on surface stains, but ultraviolet light shows most plaque remains. New Complete removes most plaque. Your mouth feels minty fresh, cleaner. Use Complete every day. New Minty Fresh Complete gives plaque the brush off.
That cough needs Formula 44.
You got anything stronger?
Can't buy anything stronger. It's got a fully effective dose of the strongest non-narcotic cough suppressant you can buy without a prescription.
Call the drugstore for something stronger. You know, more effective.
Okay, but try Formula 44. Better?
Much.
Oh, I called the drugstore. They said...
Yeah, I know. We can't buy anything stronger.
Vicks Formula 44. You can't buy anything stronger for a cough.
Pulse? Pulse. Hi, let me show you some of the different things you can do with the Osterizer Pulse button in Creative Spin Cookery. Pulse, coarse breadcrumbs. Pulse, fine breadcrumbs. Pulse, fresh ground coffee. Add water to cut vegetables. Pulse, drain, and coleslaw. And it makes great desserts, drinks, batters, even mayonnaise. The Osterizer Blender, another great time-saving idea.
Hi, honey. My, how romantic.
Lights are out all over the neighborhood.
We're supposed to have them fixed pretty soon.
Meanwhile, we'll have to rough it.
Yeah, why not?
So just say, bud. And
You know, this roughing it isn't too bad at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't exactly call Bud roughing it.
Cause when you say Budweiser, you said it all.
There's an old Wall Street adage that says, as GM goes, so goes the economy. Well, GM last night unexpectedly announced a sharp cut in its year-end dividend. That may mean GM is worried about a slowdown next year. And Wall Street today got a bad case of the jitters, the Dow Jones Industrials closing down almost 15 points. Some nervousness overseas, too, with the dollar closing lower on most European money markets and gold slightly higher. With the new interest in gold, there's a new interest and incentive in mining it. And as Ken Kashiwahara reports, the old gold rush days of California are back again.
Were called the 49ers. The year was 1849, and that was the year the California gold rush began. By the tens of thousands they came, gold pans and picks and sluice boxes in hand. By the time it was over, they had panned and picked and mined $500 million worth of gold.
Today, the rivers and streams of the motherlode country still attract those trying their luck at panning, for there still is gold in these hills. And there's another gold rush on, too, though this one bears little resemblance to the one in '49.
The gold rush of the 1970s uses technology the 49ers did not have. Sophisticated machinery digs, crushes, sifts, and chemically processes the ore, which contains gold that is barely visible. It is this gold the miners of today say the 49ers could not get to. This is the Blazing Star mine, and it is only one of a number of old mines that have been reopened because the high price of gold makes it profitable to do so. Al Farrell says he chose this one because records from the 1800s indicate there may be a lot of gold left here. And today's high price of gold, he says, has speeded up his operation.
The enthusiasm works right down to the last employee. They watch that gold price continually, and we naturally want to produce all the gold we can as quickly as possible.
Farrell says he has already sunk more than $2 million into this mine, which is the kind of money it takes nowadays, and which, along with the risk, is why more mines haven't been reopened. But after 3 years of drilling, he has now poured his first gold bar, worth about $40,000. And if the operation continues to turn out these bars for the next 15 years, as Farrell hopes it will, it could mean $100 million profit, which is not a bad return on investment. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, West Point, California.
Fog was thick and heavy in New York Harbor this morning when a Staten Island ferry missed its berth by 700 feet and crashed into a seawall. More than 170 of the 2,000 commuters on their way to Manhattan were injured. 2 remain in serious condition. Bob Brown reports on the crash.
They were thrown about like rag dolls, according to one passenger. Most of the injured were standing, waiting for the ferry to dock. Most were near the bow. The shoreline at the lower end of Manhattan was obscured by fog, but the ferry is equipped with radar. Its steel deck was peeled back by the impact of the collision. The boat was not disabled, however. The ferry service routinely carries commuters from Staten Island to Manhattan. Mishaps are rare, The captain of the damaged ferry is a 30-year veteran due to retire this year. As the investigation began, a Coast Guard spokesman told ABC News there were 3 men in the wheelhouse at the time of the collision. The captain, the assistant captain, a lookout. Among the questions were the shore strobe lights flashing? Was the radar working properly? Was the captain in control? Thursday, the Coast Guard will hold its formal hearing, hoping to have a final answer by then to why an experienced captain with an excellent safety record missed his mark so badly in this morning's fog. Bob Brown, ABC News, New York.
General Motors has announced the recall of its entire line of 1976 and 77 Chevy Chevettes. A total of 320,000 Chevettes will be recalled to repair a problem with the car's gas tanks. The tanks have failed to meet government standards for rear-end collisions.
Well, it's party time, and you need a good wine. Jacobazzi's spoken here.
Jacobazzi is the wine that will always bring the delightful flavor of Italy to your party.
Jaco is the wine that goes with everything.
Jacobazzi's tasty bounce brings people together. Enjoy it in red, white, and rosé. So for good taste, in any language.
Jacobazzi's spoken here, spoken here.
Every Chevy Fleetside pickup has 2 walls of steel. We're cutting this truck in half to show you just how much steel that means. In the hood, 2 steel walls. In the tailgate, 2 steel walls. Looking at it from another angle, you'll find 2 steel walls in the fender, in the door, and in the box. Chevy Fleetside pickups are tough. Any way you slice them.
Chevy trucks, built to stay tough.
A tractor-trailer loaded with millions of bees and their honeycombs overturned early today in Marietta, Georgia. That meant a sticky mess on the highway, delaying commuters on their way into Atlanta, and some very scary moments for people anywhere near the scene of the accident. But imagine, if you will, the plight of the poor bees. David Snell has a report.
Being a bee can be tough. You're pollinating North Dakota alfalfa, then it's off to the Florida orange groves, and now this. 300 hives, 21 million bees, dumped unceremoniously on the ground when the brakes failed on the truck that was taking them to their new home. They didn't like it. On the other hand, it was cold and damp and there was no place to go. Most of the bees stayed in their hives. Those who didn't were pacified by familiar-looking wire-faced fellows who seemed to be trying to help. To be sure, a few hotheads in the hive had buzzed about bee power and planted a stinger or 2. But by mid-morning, all of that was forgotten, thanks primarily to the weather.
The rain was a gift, and if it would have been really sunny real early this morning, it would have been one big cloud of bees here. It would have been one heck of a mess.
Fortunately for the beekeepers and area residents, the weather continued to be cloudy and cool and rainy today until the bees could be restored to their hives and taken to a holding area. Tomorrow they'll be heading south again, resuming the trip that was so rudely interrupted last night. David Snell, ABC News, Marietta, Georgia.
And that's our report on World News Tonight. For ABC News, good night.
Tonight, Frank Reynolds, Max Robinson, Howard K. Smith, Barbara Walters, and pollster Lewis Harris will let you know the hows and whys on election night. Complete ABC News coverage begins tonight at 7, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, and 4 Pacific on ABC.
I'm Judd Collins, and tonight it's all politics and election coverage here on Channel 2. The local news and vote count gets underway at 6 o'clock as the polls close in the eastern part of the state, and we'll have the information for you throughout the evening, along with interviews with the winners and the losers. Locally, there was a bank robbery and a light plane crash in the Nashville area on this election day, and we'll tell you about it on Newswatch, the 6 o'clock news with weather and sports news, 30 minutes from now on Channel 2.
Last year, Horner Roush Optical Company